All right, guys, back on Southeastern 16 with Max Barr, SEC basketball reaction Wednesday. As we clean up some of the late games from last night, Alabama gets an impressive win at Texas A&M rallies to defeat Georgia, and we'll talk about the fallout from the other games. Of course, Kentucky, Tennessee, Auburn, Vanderbilt, and Florida, Mississippi State. We talked about those last night. If you guys missed it, check out the live stream we did last night, talking about those three games in particular. But of course, we'll mention it more on this particular stream too, and specifically the fallout of Kentucky, Tennessee, because it does matter in terms of maybe a little bracketology, a little number one seed, perhaps. So we'll talk about what that means too. But shout out to everyone, especially the human here who says "Go Humans." Nothing like starting the day with "Go Humans," chant. So morning to the T-Rob as well, Jeff, and everyone else hopping in here in the chat. But all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to quickly talk about the games we did not talk about last night. Max, we start with Alabama, who got, again, a very impressive win, I thought, at Texas. We talked about the potential look-ahead spots for both Auburn and Alabama leading into that game on Saturday. Not the case here for the Tide. The Tide come out and score 103 on the road at Texas, and 17 of 29 from three. I'm just going to say this about as clear as I can say it, Max. If Alabama is hitting 17 of 29 from three, there's no one in the country that's going to beat them. So just quite a performance. Not just that, they got to the free throw line 20 times, made 18 of them. Like, this was the ultimate Alabama formula for winning a game in the Nate Oates era. Like, just excel at all areas, all levels on offense. And by the way, too, I'll say this. I think Alabama's defense probably doesn't get enough credit, too. I think they've really made some strides there. Maybe that's where Youngblood's helped a little bit. But, man, that was – Alabama looked really good last night. So
the Alabama is a great team, but we still haven't seen their ceiling. Needs to end right now.
Hold on a second. If that wasn't the ceiling, then they need to be playing in the NBA because, come on.
Well, if you guys are familiar with Haslametrics, we don't usually talk about Eric Haslam stuff as much.
We should.
We should, because he's got great stuff. He put out a tweet literally 50 minutes ago this morning. Alabama hits their high point of the season today, climbing up to their highest ranking of the year. It was their second best per game efficiency rating of the season. So yeah, the Tide are doing well. And then shout out to Jared Burson. I think he's a Michigan guy, but he does stats on the whole nation. Listen to this. Alabama tonight. This was last night. So Alabama at Texas, 103 points, 62% from the field, 59% from three, I'm rounding, and 90% from the line. They are the only Division I team to score 100 points on 60%, 55 from three, 90 from the line in a road win in 15 years. No other Division I team of any conference has done it in 15 years. A offensive performance as efficient as that on the road. Alabama just did it last night.
Yeah, I would say medal stand. Alabama might be getting some gold, even in a night of impressive performances. They were tremendous in that game, and I think we said too. And remember, we talked about it. Texas has been really good at home in these kind of games, but boy, Alabama just took it to another level, and I think that's where, again, when you just remember too, they're still playing without Reed. Like, it's just It's a wild thing to think about. The depth on this team and just how many guys are contributing, and it is something because they are just about as consistent as it gets right now in terms of their offensive output. And we've said that. I mean, they are just, and we talk about like the possession games, right? What was it? Chris brought up the stat. It was the last time they had a game under 70 possessions. That was Purdue on November 15th. 72, I think, in the game last night. And at a certain point, they're just going to wear you down with how good they are offensively. And it's just like you just can't keep up. And so I think when you look at it from that standpoint, of course, the Jarin Stevenson, yes, everyone talking about that. Yeah, I mean, the guy we knew. I mean, to have kind of the stat line that he had in this game, this was the one you were kind of waiting on, and what a great time leading into that game on Saturday. But Yeah, I mean, I don't even. Again, there's the statistical numbers themselves you can look at and say, wow, like these guys are just we're on another level. But when you actually watch the game and you actually see it, it was like, I don't know if it's even possible. They were more impressive than even the stats said. Like they were that impressive, I thought.
Yeah, and we'll get to the Texas side in a second here because I see some questions about them. But Sykes, I didn't know this either. Effective field goal percentage at 77.3%, highest road performance in the SEC in the last 18 years. My gosh, a lot of basketball played in 18 years, Blake.
There's been a lot of SEC games in 18 years, and it's yeah, that's something. All right, so
I'm glad
let's
you
quickly talk about
yeah,
yeah. What else you got?
talk about Texas real quick, but I
Yeah,
wanted to emphasize you talking about Jarin Stevenson. Nothing, you guys know I love an underdog story here. You know I like to root for the guys that don't get as much credit. There's nothing I love more than a comeback story. There's nothing I love more than someone that finds their way out of a rut. Just props to Jarin Stevenson, regardless of what fan of a team you are. You could tell he was struggling early on in the season. This is a long year, a tough year, a physical year. I just want to give it up to Stevenson for battling. I don't know what he was going through mentally, the confidence, you can't even go on social media without seeing fans talking about you. Keep your head down, keep working. I love it. I love it. Props to Jarin Stevenson.
for Texas, again, we said that's disappointing just because they had been pretty good at home. But now you're kind of entering the danger zone where all of a sudden you look up and you're 4-8 in the SEC after 3 straight losses. We talk about a team that started rough, turned it around with some big home wins against Missouri and A&M, but now they've lost 3 in a row. And your response has to be coming back and playing playing Kentucky on Saturday at home. Then it's like you get those tricky road games at South Carolina and Arkansas, which are just, if you're a team like Texas feeling the pressure, there just aren't a lot of places I want to go. Like those probably aren't 2 games I want to play either. Just given the fact where Arkansas is at, how many close calls South Carolina's had at home. So Max, for Texas, I think we've entered the danger zone for them.
Oh yeah,
Because you can't be losing 3 straight at this point in the season. Now you're at 4-8. I'm going to stick with my number. I think 7 is the magic number to get into the SEC tournament, meaning you need 7 at least going into the SEC tournament to feel like you have a shot, because I do think that the tournament, even if you finish as the 11 or the 12, you have a chance to still earn a quality win right off the bat on Wednesday in the SEC tournament. But you got to get to 7, in my opinion, to have a chance, and Texas has to find 3 more. And boy, I would like it a lot more for them if that South Carolina game was at home. If Arkansas was at home, they do get Georgia and Oklahoma, which I think are winnable games without question. I think they'll be favored in both of those games. But it's just you got to get one more somewhere else. I feel like they should beat South Carolina on the road. But again, I'm not confident in it right now with just some of these recent performances.
Texas has gotten hit pretty hard by the injury bug here mid-February. I mean, pretty much every team is dealing with at least one. I don't know if there's a team right now that's just 100% healthy. There probably is. I'm just not thinking of it. But Tremont Mark, prior Kaluma didn't play the second half. So they're all banged up. Who knows what their practices look like, who's participating, who's getting their conditioning back, who's not even practicing. Who knows with Texas? Tough time to get hit by the injury bug. And Blake, the numbers reflect the skid here. 3 games ago on Torvik's tourney cast, 3 games ago, they had about a 95% chance. They were floating in the low 90s. Right now down to 60. So it's their chances of making the tournament have really taken a step back, and now they're right back there on the bubble.
I envision a scenario where we're looking at them and somehow South Carolina, that's the one they get at home. And, we're looking up and Texas is just right there heading into Selection Sunday. But maybe not. Again, they have opportunities. They play Kentucky on Saturday. Big home games. They don't, all things considered, Texas probably, I'm not going to dare call a schedule easy. But when you compare it to other schedules, like Texas has a schedule, I think, where they can get to where they need to be. But it's hard to say that with confidence for a team that's lost 3 in a row and not to take anything away from Alabama. But like again, some of these performances have left a little bit to be desired here, and you see how they respond on Saturday because it is kind of crunch time now for Texas. So, so we'll see how it works for them moving forward. All right, let's get to a couple things here real quick. John with a $2 super chat. We appreciate you, John. Going for the all SEC Final Four, and then the Iron Bowl for the national title game. How about that? Now that would be something, right? Can you imagine national college basketball, media, fans, if we get an all SEC Final Four? Will anyone attend the game? I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting question, but I kid a little bit, but that's just, I mean, look, he's not the only one. Like there was someone saying last night, like they were like, I don't know, they got to figure out, what to do, how they're going to approach this game on Saturday. They don't really know what to do. So, but of course, the upcoming schedule, very obvious for Alabama. They will host Auburn on Saturday, and as we said, Texas will play Kentucky. So that's kind of the setup.
Because we'll probably get some extra thoughts on Auburn quick too as we go through all the games.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Any thoughts on the spread of that we previously projected to be Auburn -1.5 after we just
Not
saw
as
the
confident.
games? All right, I was just gonna say.
I told you, I'm moving more towards a pick'em here. I think it's I think it's probably should move more towards a pick'em. Is my that should be my thought, I believe now. So not as strong about that Auburn 1.5 as I was last week or whenever we talked about it. So
I have a bunch of stats for that game when we do that preview. But however, one that I didn't find myself, someone sift through the data for me. Home teams in the 1 versus 2 matchup, when it's not played at a neutral, when it's played at a home court setting, the home team is 12-6 in the history of number 1 versus number 2. Number 1 versus number 2, though, is 22-20 all time. Number 1 has a 2-game advantage. So there's really no edge there. Oh, I can't wait.
Well, we will, of course, have it covered. We'll make a prediction, which I don't know. Who knows where we're going to go on that? I have no clue.
No clue.
But we'll make our predictions tomorrow for that game, and I think we're going to might have a couple extra videos and or streams leading up to that game on Saturday based on some guest lists I'm working on. So
I like it.
We'll see what we can do for that. But all right, let's talk about here quickly, and then we'll get back to anything you guys want to get back to. Again, we always just kind of like to run through the games we haven't covered, and then we will get back to everything else in the chat and talk about tonight's games, and we'll look ahead to Saturday a little bit. All right, Max, a tale of two halves in College Station, as it was Texas A&M getting the win over Georgia in what was pretty much convincing fashion after trailing by, what was it, I think as many as 11 early in the second half. But A&M comes back, wins 69-53. I mean, there was a point there where I did not know if Georgia was going to score double digits in the second half. Really, I mean, they had, what was it? I think they had 4 points 12 minutes into the half.
Yeah.
And so I was really not sure if they were going to get to that number. They did wind up scoring 21 in the second half overall, but some of that was just down the stretch where the game was completely in hand. I mean, A&M went from being – here's the stat of the game right here. A&M goes from being down 11 with 18:49 left in the second half to being up 21 14 minutes and 41 seconds later. I mean, that was the story here of this game, and I mean, Max is just a combination of things. A&M did exactly what A&M does. They got a lot of second chance opportunities where they finished 18-19 offensive rebounds. Georgia just could not consistently find any offense after coming out early and feeling like they had found a little bit of a rhythm. I mean, how many did Blue Cain have at the half versus
close to his total
in the second half? Yeah, I'd say it's close to his total. Demery, we mentioned. I mean, if there is one thing, if you're looking at for Georgia, like he's played pretty well. He's played all 40 minutes in this game, and of course, if you're Mike White, there's no chance you're taking that guy off the floor right now. But they just do not have enough consistent offense, and I know I've said that so many times. And remember too, especially when you're down 2 players, we always talk bet the bad news. You're down Lawrence, you're down LeFew, and you talked about him yesterday in terms of kind of that difference between non-conference and conference play. So that matters here, but still, I just, again, to me, it's back to just you got to find the wins. And for a little while there, you felt like this may be one for Georgia that they'd have a shot, but I think eventually just the depth sort of caught up with them, not having those 2 guys, and that was kind of the difference, I felt like, in the second half.
Yeah, Nathan, don't you worry, Nathan. He wants Solo back on the bully ball team. Don't worry. Committee's keeping an eye. Solo had a great game. One of his better offensive outputs of his career, really. 17 points, 5 rebounds for Solo. But yeah, I thought this was a good defensive performance. Zhuric Phelps continues to not be talked about enough. I like how Rothstein has kind of dubbed Zhuric Phelps nationally as the most underrated transfer, just because he really doesn't get the credit when you talk about A&M. The first 2 things you usually talk about are the offensive rebounds and Wade Taylor, and then Zhuric Phelps gets lapped in there underneath. No. This guy he had a stretch there of a few plays where it was like steal, he makes the play, steal, comes back, hits a 3-ball, and he's just going nuts. And it's like, what a sequence there by Zhuric Phelps. Yeah. That was incredible. So yeah, I thought he had a great game. And now A&M moves up, and this is, I'm telling you, I love Luke Evangelist and his stats on Twitter. A&M over the past 3 seasons moves up to 4th in the SEC in home winning percentage. Alabama is 92.9% and Auburn's 90.7%. They've both only lost 3 and 4 times respective. Tennessee is at 89.1%, and then A&M at 83.7%, 4th in the SEC over the last 3 years at home. They're a tough team to play at home, Blake.
Yeah, I'd say so. Good luck to anyone having a shot at sort of winning that there. But yeah, I mean, I think with A&M, like we mentioned, this was the kind of performance you want to see based on how the game started. Because like you and I were talking about it last night, we're like, uh-oh, is this going to be one of those A&M games that we just have not seen this year? But we saw it plenty of times the past couple of years where it's like, oh no, you can't do this. Like you can't lose this kind of game, right? But they come back again, have a great second half, and like I mentioned, I mean, you do have to factor in Georgia being a little shorthanded, but I think overall it is still one where that's a good win for A&M because we mentioned too. I think just the overall defensive effort for Georgia is still there. Like they're still a good defensive team. It's just, man, that's where we get into like looking at tournament scenarios and all that. Like, are you going to be able to win those kind of games that you need to win? Just feeling like you just can't hit that next gear offensively. Again, this game aside, because we know it's disrupted a little bit when you don't have some key players. But I still have my questions on that, Max, when we look at just their overall performances.
Yeah, and that was a tough matchup too.
Oh yeah,
that was a tough matchup. But yeah, I don't have any pushback on that at all. I'm trying to load the Torvik percentages for Georgia to get into the tournament, but it's not loading right now. However, Bart Torvik just 5 seconds ago saves me and posts a tweet of the bubble. Georgia right now is Bart Torvik's 3rd team out. So they're I would agree with that, Blake. Kind of on the outside now.
Yeah, I feel like their resume is just, it's getting further and further away from what it needs to be. And I think, like we said, the good news for Georgia is St. John's just keeps on winning. And if you're Georgia, you better be rooting for St. John's to win out. Because, look, it sounds small, but it really is kind of a significant thing if you're a team on the bubble, where you need that team to keep winning, because that win is looking better and better by the day. And that's what Georgia lacks right now, not just overall wins in the SEC, but they need more of those quality wins, right? They've beaten Kentucky. They've beaten St. John's. Beyond that, I mean, that's what we kind of talked about, right? Like when Chris is arguing Grand Canyon as one of your top wins, you just don't have enough at this point. And nothing against Grand Canyon, right? They're 17-6, and I'm sure probably have a decent shot to win that league, although Utah Valley has a better record right now at 9-1. But that's just they need more of those. So it's a big stretch coming up for Georgia, and I think they've got to find ways here to just get wins. Now, the hard thing, like we said, is going to be how do you get there? Tricky game against Missouri on Saturday. Week off at Auburn. Going to be tough there. Rematch against Florida. I just think Florida is a bad matchup for Georgia. And then it's like you go to Texas, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. You just got to find three, in my opinion. Just got to find three. But I'm finding it harder and harder to get those three for Georgia right now, unless that offense just takes a step forward. So,
yeah, got to get healthy really fast. It's a tough spot. Real quick, just on A&M, Lenardi has not, excuse me, sorry, has not updated his bracketology this morning, but yesterday A&M was the final 2 seed at 8th overall, and Purdue was at 6th overall as a 2 seed. Purdue lost last night on the road in a close one to Michigan, so I'm not sure how much they drop back. However, the conversation's there for A&M just continuing to move up those kind of the rankings game by game. I would assume they're now 7th overall, so just slowly creeping up.
Yep. I'm going to see while we're talking about it if we have any updates from some of our other favorite ones. Let's see what Rocco had on his. Now, this was updated on the 10th, so that would have been Monday, right? So before the action we've seen. So I think it's kind of interesting to look at. But so he would have had, let's see. Yeah, I mean, kind of the thing you would expect. We said A&M was on the 2 line, Florida was on the 2 line at that point. And just, yeah, like I said, there's not really a lot of mystery here. But in terms of like where Georgia was at that point, let's see where it would have been at. Let's see if I can find them here. I'm going to assume, yeah, so they were 10 seed at that point. So they are getting closer and closer, like you said, to that dropping out point. So, but it's game by game now. So, game by game, just if you win a game, it can change. So, that's how it works. So, yes, Sam, of course it's turning into bracketology because we're at that point in the season. Max just said it. It's crunch time. Like, you got to win games now. So, we have to put every single game within the context of are you in or are you out? And that's where we are. So,
we are 16 days from March. 16.
Yeah, come on. It's time. If you didn't like that, Sam, well, you're not going to like this next one because now we talk about the fallout of the Kentucky win against Tennessee. But before we do that, Max, we're talking about brackets and bracketology. And Sam is so excited about this talk with bracket and bracketology.
Yes.
He's going to be even more excited when he hears this. Bracket bids. Bracket bids. Bracket bids. Like, he's going to keep saying it hundreds of times over the next 5 minutes. But when we talk about brackets and bracket bids, we know what we're talking about. We're talking about a quality product here. The SEC is going to be a quality product in the NCAA tournament this year. Bracket bids, quality product that'll help you take your college hoops experience to the next level. Enter into that free pick'em contest or start an auction draft league with friends, family, or coworkers. Start that league, guys. It's going to be a lot of fun to see if you can outwit and outduel your league mates there to see if you can secure the teams that will go the distance. Choose from the multiple scoring models, including the upset bonuses to reward those bold picks. Track your teams with live in-game scoring and watch the standings shift in real time. The further your teams advance, the higher you climb in the league standings. For league play, remember, use that promo code SE16 for 40% off. Download the Bracket Bids app today or visit them at bracketbids.com. All right. Now, let's talk about the fallout from this game. Because, Max, I've seen a lot of people talking about it. And we'll get to some of your questions in a minute. You guys have some good questions, and we'll get to them shortly. But do we think now, with Florida's very impressive win at Mississippi State, Tennessee losing in Kentucky, Are the Gators jumping the Vols for that other number 1 seed as it stands right now on February the 12th?
I don't see how they don't.
I don't either. Florida now has the win at Auburn. They just won at Mississippi State convincingly. They did jump Tennessee in the net, which those teams have not moved a spot in the net like for a century. But Florida jumped up to 4. Tennessee's at 5. So they did swap places in the net. I don't really think that means a whole lot. But like we said, though, that's where looking at the top overall seeds, I think you're still looking at a scenario where Florida probably jumps Tennessee right this second. But again, it's a game-by-game thing at this point. So,
yeah, didn't Florida jump them on KenPom for the first time all season too?
Is that right?
Florida
Yeah, they may have.
Yeah, I think it was the first time, maybe second time. I'm not sure, but yeah, the analytics have caught up with it as well. I think that's the right choice. Florida so it would go 1 Auburn, 2 Alabama. Would you still go 3 Duke, 4 Florida, or would you say 3
I think
Florida?
I would move. Now, look, that's me. I still think they would probably have Duke as the 3rd spot, but I would move Florida ahead or Tennessee, whichever team I still think has a better resume than Duke, but that's just my opinion. So,
man, and Houston won, so Houston stays right up there. I think Houston now probably see. There's another. Now we get into all these different types of conversations. Does Tennessee fall behind Houston? Where does that end up? Then it falls down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, for sure. What else? Any additional thoughts you have coming out of the game last night? Kentucky getting the win over Tennessee. I mean, we talked about it again for quite a while, but anything else that we didn't really maybe hit on too much last night?
My main thing is I was thinking about it as after we wrapped up the stream last night, and it was just like I feel like with Kentucky, there's something about, you know how when earlier in the year when Auburn was just cruising through the non-conference and we're like, this team is just laughing out there, they're just having fun, they're joking around, they look like they're having a great time. It's a long season, Blake. We're in mid-February, and it seems like every single team is just dropping like flies with injuries. Something about this Kentucky team and the way that these freshmen come in and play like they're seniors, it's got a different feel to it. It's got a slightly different feel to it, where if other teams would bring in their unplayed freshmen, I'd be like, oh, I don't know about this one. You know, they haven't really gotten much time. I know that this is a league where everyone's stepping up with the injuries. I have full confidence in Noah and Perry now. Full confidence that they can play anyone in this league and perform well. It's just a different feel for me.
Yeah. I know. It is like, and I think that you pointed out, it's a long season. Like, and I think, and you guys have fun with us on our opinions changing sometimes. How could they not change? Like, based on just the up and down, unpredictable nature of these games in the SEC this season. And we knew that, right? Like, the SEC was very predictable in non-conference play. Most of the time, the SEC were going to win the big games. But when you start having these teams play each other, it's just like we're going to, at times, overreact to certain things. Especially when you have injuries, it's so hard because you don't have that sample size of seeing a team play certain lineups because they haven't had to play those kind of lineups, which can, again, maybe not be a bad thing because the other team can't really scout you because they don't have a lot of, again, data to work with on what that lineup does specifically. And so, yeah, like it's just, man, it's been so interesting to kind of just see how our opinions continue to evolve on some of these teams. It's kind of like the Tennessee thing, Tennessee's out of it too, because we were like, does our opinion really change that much on Tennessee? Or have we kind of formed our opinion on them at this point? Like, we kind of know what their strengths and weaknesses are, just like we feel like we kind of know what the strengths and weaknesses are of Kentucky and other teams now. Because, and we said this last week, I'm pretty sure, teams just kind of are who they are at this point. They can get better game by game at certain things, but like, are you going to go from being, let's say, average to elite in a certain category at this point in the season? No, probably not. It's just taking that big of a jump is probably not going to happen. Can't say it won't with 100% certainty, but that's just kind of, again, we've seen these teams for 20 plus games now, and we kind of have an idea who they are. And like we mentioned, we try to identify sort of who are the statistical nightmares for some of these teams. But it's not so easy either because it's just teams are up and down, and again, things change game to game. So,
yeah, I mentioned it quickly last night, but one thing that this offense is missing, as good as Milicic has been, because I continue to be impressed by Milicic and how versatile he is offensively, the way he uses that pump fake. I love a good pump fake. Milicic has got one of the better ones in the league this year. The way that he can just get downhill so quickly off that closeout. Lanier has definitely, his lack of production in some games has definitely hurt them. He was up at 50% from three for a while this year. In conference right now, he's down at 33%, which, I mean, is it's not bad. But, yeah. I mean, there was a stream I distinctly remember. I forget when it was. Maybe it was after Illinois or it was after Arkansas, or it was somewhere around like December-ish when Chaz Lanier was 5th in Ken Palm's National Player of the Year voting, and I was comparing that to Connect last year because Connect finished 5th also. So I was like, look at this. Lanier comes in to replace Connect, and he's currently rated as the same level as a player, 5th in the country, just like Connect finished last year. That is long gone. Long gone.
Yep. Well, we'll see, as we said. I think for both teams, some interesting games ahead. For those two in particular, we talked about for Tennessee getting the rematch with Vanderbilt on Saturday. Then they go to A&M the following Saturday. Can you imagine? That may be the watch-along you really want, Max. Tennessee at Texas A&M. I don't know. And then, of course, for Kentucky, they've got to go to Texas, and then they get their own rematch against Vanderbilt next Wednesday before the game at Alabama on the 22nd. So, Kentucky at Alabama watch-along may be more enticing for some people than the Tennessee at Texas A&M one. We remember what happened the last time we watched that game for the watch-along. It was quite a spectacle. But, all right, quickly for tonight's games. Any additional thoughts? Again, guys, if you want our previews for tonight's games, we've made our picks for the 3 matchups, which will be, as we know, it's going to be South Carolina hosting Ole Miss. You've got Missouri hosting Oklahoma and Arkansas hosting LSU. I mean, our picks were pretty straightforward here, Max, but I'll tell you, the more I look at this game, I'm still, for some reason, this one scares me for Ole Miss at South Carolina. But I also mentioned that in the preview where LSU getting their attention in that last game, maybe that actually works in Ole Miss's favor a little bit. But
see, Joe Mother is saying boring games tonight, and that's okay.
Right back, by the way,
that's okay if you don't have a stake in tonight's games. But guys, what's one thing that this league has told us this year? Right when you think you know what to expect, it's just a 3-game night. There's only 2 top 25 teams. There he is. There he is. He knows something's going to go down tonight. Blake, South Carolina right now is plus 4.5.
Oh.
2 layups. 2 layup spread. For a team that hasn't won an SEC game. We got a spread of 2 layups. Oh, man.
What's the number for Missouri, Oklahoma right now?
9.5.
9.5? Really? Wow.
Yep.
That's a lot.
Both Missouri and Arkansas are 9.5.
Yeah. Interesting. Like I said, I think Oklahoma's the kind of team you certainly don't want to sleep on if you're Missouri, because we've seen them and the offensive upside, I think, of that team. There is a lot to like at times. Like we mentioned, like the Vanderbilt game where they just go on one of those ridiculous type runs. But they've also, like other teams, have had some issues on the road. And so Missouri just lost their first home game of the season. You would expect Missouri to bounce back in a big way here, I think. But, yeah, I think I feel like this is kind of one. Look, Oklahoma's in that same boat, right, of teams that just have to start finding good wins somewhere. And look, I mean, they're not going to lack opportunities because they have one of the toughest schedules too remaining when you look at their remaining schedule. So, but yeah, I think it's going to be fun to see how it plays out because I think Missouri should bounce back here.
The home win percentage continues to drop in the SEC. Last night, 3 out of the 5 road teams won. Just happens to be 1, 2, and 3 in the nation that won on the road. So maybe not too surprising, but the home win percentage creeping closer and closer to 50%, which is just nuts. But
yeah,
do with that what you will.
By the way, I still like Leanne's. We brought this up previously. Her approach to watching games. She's going to watch the UK Tennessee game because she couldn't watch it last night because she said she's a wimp. She checked in on the score, but it was just too close to watch, right? Now you can watch the replay knowing that you're able to enjoy it. So, like, that's one way to do it. So, everyone has a different way of watching the games. So, all right. Yeah, I don't have a lot. We said, I think, Arkansas LSU, it's the ultimate bad spot game for LSU. I just think Arkansas is in a good revenge mode here for that one. John with a $2 super chat. Saying that beast mode Chaney Johnson's going to save the day on Saturday. So
Chaney.
Maybe. Chaney Johnson has continued to step up time and time again. So he's going to be a big part of that on Saturday, especially after the Jarin Stevenson breakout game. You got, and just think about the compelling matchups at every single position. Just incredible stuff with these two teams on Saturday. So.
Can't wait. Speaking of incredible stuff, this is bouncing around, but it's a stat I wanted to make sure I got in, and I almost forgot it. I just remembered I didn't say it yet. Jumping around here, going back to Gators. Tommy H. Shocker.
Tommy.
Shocker. Listen to this. This is from Jared Burson again. Wonderful stats he puts out. Florida's Tommy Haugh in 37 minutes off the bench last night in a win against Mississippi State. He put up 16 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 blocks, 2 steals. He is the first SEC player with at least 15 points, at least 8 rebounds and 8 assists, and multiple blocks, multiple steals in a game since John Wall in 2010. How do you like that? How do you like them apples?
Let's be honest. If we're filling out our all-SEC teams right now, one of us is putting Tommy Haugh on our all-SEC team. How could we not? I mean, come on.
He has soared past Caleb Grill for 6th man of the year in my mind. Past 2 games.
Tommy is just he's on another level right now. So yeah, I think he's just been tremendous, man. So
it's Sir Thomas Haugh to you.
Sir Thomas Haugh. That's what we should start calling him. Can we?
Yeah.
We can't use his name for merchandise, but can we do Sir Tommy H? Is that acceptable? Like, yeah, he is. Man, that guy is just on a roll right now. But we said it. That's the key with Florida right now. Guys are stepping up, and they've had the injuries that we talked about, and it's incredible to think of what they've done these past 2 games without Elijah Martin. So the games they've won without him. And please don't anyone start telling me they're better without him. Don't. But just, it is one of those wild things where bet the bad news works again. So, now I know you're going to be surprised by this, Max, but T-Wit for Gator here, the all-SEC team has got Clayton, Martin, Tommy H., Condon, and Will Richard. I mean, look, we all get a vote here. So, can you imagine if we did like a Google Forms thing where like just the chat made their own all-SEC teams? There'd be no bias whatsoever. But I'd be curious to see exactly how that would unfold. We might do that for fun. So
I'm doing that with the bully ball team. I'm making that that's going to be a community bully ball team.
Yeah. Well, I don't blame you. All right. You guys send any questions, comments you have. We'll get back to some of the questions here from earlier. And again, some of these were a little bit earlier. But let's see. Where are we at here? Max, I'm trying to find some of the comments.
We got a few starred.
It's not loading for me. Pull up one you can see. For some reason, I can't get it to load.
Let's see here. Cam and Witt. This might be off topic. Well, we're here to answer your off-topic questions.
We're always off topic here.
Can Big Z have another great game like he did against Alabama on Saturday? You talking about the game at? Oh, he's talking about tonight's game. Yeah, of course he can.
It's a good matchup. Yeah. Like we said, last time Big Z played 7 minutes and had 2 fouls against LSU. Think about how far he's come since then. So, yeah, I think he's going to have a big game tonight. I think Cal better get him involved tonight because you want to keep that momentum going.
Yeah.
So, all right. Jerry asks, now I got it loaded. Is it possible for Ole Miss to get a double bye? I mean, yeah, statistically, probably it's still possible, right? Because they are 7-4. So yeah, no, they're still in the conversation.
Yeah. They're in it.
We're still a long way from clinching the double byes at this point. Because remember too, by virtue of Auburn and Alabama playing on Saturday, somebody's about to get the 2 losses. So, so yeah, I think Ole Miss is sitting at 7-4. Yeah, they're still in the conversation. So, yeah. All right, Max. I know you wanted to bring this one up quickly. Adam, bringing up Jacob Pickle has become the menace when it comes to this stat. But it's true. I mean, we're not. It's very true. 82 and 82 is the number. So
I feel for the play-by-play guys because I know what they're trying to do in that time. It's a blowout. There's a few minutes left. You're just trying to pull on some stats, something to fill the dead space, just to get the broadcast, just to keep it going. You pull on a stat and you get got. Oh,
you think Jacob Pickle ever thought in a million years that when he tweeted that out, this thing would be this worldwide phenomenon that would last weeks and weeks? What do you know? So that's how it works.
Great stuff.
Great stuff. All right. Shout out to Skylar. Skylar's here. Tyler, random question. Do you think the SEC officiating hurts SEC teams in the tournament? These teams get used to these calls and don't get them in March. Officiating is so inconsistent in the SEC, in my opinion. I have answered that question probably every year for the past, I don't know how many years. The answer is always the same. Yes, I do think it hurts. I will say part of that, not to defend the officials, if you want to play the counter argument, it's just that the SEC stylistically does kind of have a pretty defined way of how teams play, where, like we said, if you just play the percentages, it's not usually a great three-point shooting league. It's a league where you do have big, front courts, big guard play. So you have more physicality. You have more potential for, again, physical type play on every possession because there are more plays at the rim too. The rebounding, we talked about that. It's just every league's different, but I think it's not easy to officiate the SEC, but I do think there are some things in terms of the trends. It doesn't help when you get to tournament play. So,
yeah, I also just think it depends on matchups too.
Sure.
Like if you get, like last year, if you get A&M matched up against Houston as the 1 versus the 8-9, I think it helps you then having the whole season playing against teams that try to do what Houston does physically. So I think it's all matchups.
Yeah. So we'll see. Again, how games are called always is a thing. Yep. Look, that's the thing, Don. We pointed out year after year the percentages in the SEC usually rank 25th or lower in 32 conferences and 3-point percentage each year because the defenses, and that's what we see. We talk about the splits from non-conference to conference play. We always see some of these teams that just shoot it so well, or players that shoot it so well in non-conference play. you get to SEC play, those looks just aren't there. So I was about to make a joke, Max, but I didn't want to do it to one of your teams. About certain teams, those looks seem to be there a lot these days when you're shooting the three. But
hey, that's their style. That's their style.
We won't go back to that. I just that is something I still think about. Like, I've been thinking about that since we've talked about it all year, basically at this point. But like, that is just such a one of those stats. Like, if you came into the year, like, give me 3 stats that there's no chance you're going to believe it in February. The amount of threes that team has given up and the percentages the teams are shooting against them. So
tough.
I'll let you guys decide if you can figure out who that is. All right. Questions? Any more questions? Because we're going to be wrapping up here and shortly. Again, we got the Wednesday night games tonight. Full disclosure, we probably will not be doing a reaction tonight for those games just based on the way the schedule falls. So we'll probably come back tomorrow morning and do the reaction. And like we said, we are going to load you up with predictions for Saturday, and we're probably going to add a couple more things for this Alabama-Auburn game on Saturday since it's such a big game. So we'll talk about that, and we'll do that as well. So anything else, Max?
No, that's about it. What do we got, guys? Any more questions?
Well, I'll tell you what we got. So, Max, I don't know if you're a film aficionado, Max Barr. Not sure if you're out here checking out all the Hollywood scenes when it comes to all the movies in 2025. But I will tell you this. I've had some people send this to me, and this kind of was just a wild thing, all right? So I've been getting all these people messaging me being like, hey, did you know you're in a movie? And I'm thinking, well, hold on a second. Who's filming? You know, what's going on here? Like, I didn't know that. But it turns out, Max, are you ready for this? I'm going to pull it up on the screen.
I don't know if I am ready.
No, you're going to find out. So, Wolfman is the movie here, okay? So I'm going to pull up the Wikipedia. I could do a better job of this. You're not going to be able to see it. But Wolfman is the name of the movie. Now, it has, what's her name? Julia Garner, who was in Ozark. So she's in it. But, Max, if we look at the plot section here, I'm going to read this to you. I don't know if you can see this, but this is an incredible thing. So, in 1995, a hiker's vanishing in the remote mountains of Oregon sparked speculation about a virus linked to the region's wildlife. During a hunting trip in the area, a young Blake Lovell and his stern father Grady spot a mysterious humanoid creature lurking in the forest and hide in an elevated hunting blind. 30 years later, Blake lives in San Francisco with his daughter Ginger and his workaholic wife Charlotte. That is Julia Garner, by the way. Like his now estranged father, he struggles to control his temper, causing a strain on his marriage. One day, he receives a death certificate for Grady, who went missing, and the keys to his childhood home. He decides to vacation there in an attempt to repair his relationship with Charlotte. Max, what is going on here? Are you kidding me?
We're living in a what is going on?
Are you kidding me? We're making the movies now? Oh. You guys are saying I changed that. No, I didn't. Go Google it. Go Google anything you want. This is an actual thing. Like, the Wolfman. Like, I am now the Wolfman. But you know what, guys? I didn't just bring that up for that reason. Max, if there was a key part in there that says, 30 years later, Blake lives in San Francisco. You know who got me to San Francisco? Sanders Logistics. It got the Wolfman all the way out to the West Coast in San Francisco. The Wolfman now resides there with his workaholic wife, Charlotte. And we all got there based on Sanders Logistics, formerly known as Ted R. Sanders Moving, a leader among moving companies in Nashville, Tennessee, and the surrounding area. They're a team of professional movers, whether you're a Wolfman or not. They're focused on delivering efficient, hassle-free moving at an affordable price. 30 years later, I said, give me the best affordable price out there, the most hassle-free possibility, because I want to see what this mysterious humanoid creature is out in the hunting regions in the wildlife. And that's what got me there. Sanders Logistics, they knew about it. They said, let's get the Wolfman on the van we're heading out west. Whether you're moving across town or across the country, boom, there you go. Sanders Logistics has you covered. Visit them at tedarsandersmoving.com.
Can you tell it's almost March, folks? How about that? We're stepping up our game.
Should we do a Wolfman watch along? Should we do a Wolfman watch along for our members? Maybe. Don't spoil the movie for me, anyone. I'm gonna have to watch this now because I've been getting sent this a lot. Came out on January 17th. Universal Pictures. By the way, it's already racked up $33.8 million in the box office. Am I getting royalties for that? You think? Probably not. So
we need a sequel. Wolfman runs into the horse, and Josh Gray comes out of nowhere.
I have no idea how this movie plays out, but I got to watch it now because this is just scintillating. Like, this is tremendous.
You see Josh Gray anywhere in there?
I don't know. Maybe. Maybe. Guys, I didn't spoil the movie. This is just telling me what the plot is. Like, this is not the full movie here.
Now we know what happens.
So, I mean, come on. So, it's just the plot, right? It's not the full spoilers. It's just a plot. So, listen, if you haven't seen Wolfman by now, come on. Don't kid yourself. Don't act like we were gonna all be watching that right now. So, all right. Watch along, Wolfman. We appreciate you guys as always. Yeah. I don't even know what to say after the Wolfman experience, but we'll have stuff, as we said, coming up tomorrow morning. Reactions to tonight's games. And yeah, everything else, of course, getting you ready for Saturday. Predictions, videos coming tomorrow. We will have a lot of fun stuff. So yeah, we appreciate you guys.
I got one more.
Subscribe button.
One more stat.
Mm-hmm.
I almost missed it. Big Gator EJ, you reminded me. You ready for this one, Blake? History last night. History for the Gators. Florida's victory last night was the first time in Gator program history winning back-to-back road games against ranked opponents. First time in Florida Gator history. How about that? Historic. Yep.
The Gators. Don't sleep on the Gators. So, national championship good. Big Gator EJ knows it. Malik knows it. They all know it. So,
yep.
There you go. All right, guys. We appreciate you. Hit the like button before you head out. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Turn on notifications when we go live. You know it. Appreciate you watching. We'll talk to you soon. Southeastern 16.